I want to dive into deep technology, super advanced technology. And that super advanced technology is text files. Text files are sort of the equivalent of an index card when it comes to value to our RPGs. They are like the digital version of an index card. They are super flexible. They are super cheap. They're super ubiquitous. They offer so much options and so much capability that I think it's worth us paying a little bit of extra respect to the text file. Text files, very simple idea. All computers have them. Right? All computers have text files. All computers use text files. All the computers can read text files. They are a near ubiquitous file format that has been around for 60 years. They have outdated pretty much any other file format that exists for computers. Back when ASCII was formatted as a standard is when text files formatted. And if you had text files from 60 years ago, on the assumption that you kind of moved them forward correctly, you would still be able to read them today. There's still a lot of like little standardy bits that exist, little problems, little barbs that you might run into from time to time. But generally speaking, text files are a ubiquitous way of transferring information from one system to another and has done so for 60 years. They are incredibly small. They use up very, very little space. They're very easy to save. They're very easy to transfer. They're very easy to back up. They're very easy to convert. You can open them up in just about everything. Text files are so easy to use and so powerful. You don't have to worry about fonts. You don't have to worry about stylings. When you work with text files, you're just worried about text. You're just worried about your content. And yet they offer some extendability as well. They're totally cross-system compatible. There's little tidbits here, like why does Unix use one end thing for a carriage return? Windows uses another thing for a carriage return. But any text editor worth its salt has ways of converting things like carriage returns over from one system to another. Generally speaking, though, you're not going to lose your data. It's very easy to convert from one platform to another. I have been using text files, as long as I've been using computers, obviously. But for like RPG standpoints, I've been using them for a long time. When I write my articles for Sly Flourish, they are written as text files. When I write my game notes for my games, they are written as text files. We're going to get into Markdown in a minute, but really what Markdown is a text file. It's a formatting for a text file. That's all it really is. It's a style of a text file. And there's so many ways you can use text files for your RPGs. You can use them as a scratch pad during your game. When I run my games online, I have a text editor open and I have a text file there, and I just keep it open so I can write things down, right? I can just write down anything I need, names that have popped up during the game, all different kinds of things. I keep my game prep notes in a text file, and I can open them up in a text editor and read them. I keep track of marching order. When I'm running the game and I'm like, okay, who's up front? I keep a little text thing and I keep it in my text file and I can save it. And the cool bit there is I can copy it and then paste it into Discord so that people can see what the marching order is visually. That transfer of text file to other things, really, really powerful. Initiative. I use text files to manage initiative. I just put the number down there and then I move the line up and down, copy and paste and move the line, or cut and paste and move the lines up and down until we have the initiative order. I don't need any special tools. I don't need a special initiative tracking system. Text files, text editors, they work just fine. They work really well. Theater of the mind positioning. Actually, let's go back to Obsidian here. So in the Lazy DM's Companion, I have a chapter on playing D&D online, and one of the things I talk about is doing text-based combat tracking. This is the idea of using text to figure out where monsters are. That right-hand little image is a text file, right? That's the information you keep in a text file. You can use all caps in order to describe a location. Then you can do little dashes for characters. You can remove the dashes for monsters, and it shows you who is in what area. This is for like zone-based combat, right? Who is involved in zone-based combat. Another trick I've started doing is actually mixing my initiative, and then on the initiative line, I will also keep track of like damage done to monsters, so I know how much damage they've taken, and I can also write like which monsters are next to which characters or which zone they are connected to. So that way my initiative thing in my text editor has initiative, character names, monster names, damage done to monsters, and abstract positioning of characters and monsters to one another and to zones, all in one little area inside a text file. What you're looking at on the left actually is a text file, right? If I go to source mode, this is what it looks like in text because I'm using Obsidian over here. Obsidian reads Markdown files. Markdown files are text files. So it turns out all these deep down, when you get to it, are text files. I love text files so much. I want to talk more about them. So initiative, theater of the mind positioning, and after session notes. You can jot down your notes while you're playing the game. Just write things down, save it to your desktop, and then go back and clean things up. So now let's talk about Markdown. So what is Markdown? Markdown is a styling format for text files that allows other programs to be able to render them in a more document style way with headings, bolding and italicizing, lists, unordered and ordered lists, things of that nature. And this, by the way, what you're looking at here was written in a text file and then converted into Markdown. And that's why you have headers. So heading 1s, heading 2s, list items, bold. And it's all about very simple formatting. We'll actually go to these notes in Obsidian. So here's the same notes in Obsidian, and we will go to the source mode. Source mode shows what they look like. This is the styling. You put a pound sign at the beginning, you create an H1, 2 pound signs is an H2, and so on. You could do H3s, H4s, and so on. If you do just a little hyphen, I like to use a hyphen, but you can also use a star space. But if you use a hyphen space, that creates a list item. When it rendered in Markdown, it does lists. Double stars next to something bolds it. A single star italicizes it. And you can link stuff by putting brackets and parentheses. I'll link down to a Markdown, sort of a definition of different Markdown formatting. And then you have ordered lists. Ordered lists, you just do 1 dot and then the first one, 2 dot and then the next one. And something that can render Markdown will make it look nice in a Markdown renderer. So Obsidian, which I've talked about before on the show, Obsidian is a powerful Markdown document system, right? It's sort of like a big notepad, a big fancy notepad where you can have lots of different documents. You can link those documents together and you can write it all. And underneath Obsidian is a bunch of directories with text files in them. And the text files are called .md instead of .txt. So the extension's a little different, but they are open. You can open them up as a text file, read them as a text file, and they're human legible. One of the real features of Markdown that is great is, as you saw, when I switched it over into Markdown, it's just as readable, right? It is easy to read as it is when it's fully rendered because Markdown is very lightweight, right? Markdown has this wonderful feature of being human readable and machine readable all inside of a text file. So very, very powerful stuff and allows you to write down game notes, write down, keep a scratch pad that you're using at your game during your digital games and keep those files around, back them up, keep them forever. And you know that later on, you're not going to have to worry about, oh man, I was using this special thing. All my stuff was in Evernote. And now I have to convert it all from Evernote to other stuff. Pain in the ass. The nice thing about text files, you never have to convert them. They are already at the file format that you need in order to convert to anything else. So one of the other features of text files that I think is important, and I've talked about this before too, about the stack that we use when we're doing games. And I've talked to GMs who are really wrapped around a single interface to run their games, right? They use a single virtual tabletop. Like a lot of people that I've been talking to are using Foundry. And I've heard people say, if I couldn't use Foundry, I couldn't run RPGs, right? Somebody that I know and respect said that recently. And that hurts a little bit because it means that what if it stops working for you, right? What happens? And there's something about the idea of, and I really think I subscribe. I'm not saying anybody who's using a VTT as a single platform and loves it that way doesn't want to change. Hey, if it's working for you, it's working for you, right? But there's a brittleness that comes from building around an entire system and knowing that it has to work around that system. For example, I know in Foundry, you can't easily take monsters from the Tales of the Valiant Monster Vault and use them in your D&D 2024 game. I have no problem with that. Right? I have no difficulty when I'm running online games of bringing in any monster from any source I have because I don't use the monsters inside the virtual tabletop. I don't use the stat blocks inside the virtual tabletop. I just pull out the book and I look at the stat block on the book. And we use the virtual tabletop only for moving tokens around on a map. That's all we use it for. I use text files in order to track things like initiative, in order to track marching order, in order to track other stuff. And I tell you, it is super fast to use that stuff. And then, what about sharing? Well, to share, you copy it and you paste it in Discord and they can see it in the Discord. You can paste it in any chat window that you're using that other people have access to. I think there's a real value in splitting apart the different tools that we use to run our online games. I'm not saying anyone who doesn't do that is wrong, but I think it's a perspective, I think that there's a perspective that we can take. And I know that I find a lot of value and a lot of flexibility that I gain by splitting out all of my digital tools into different parts. And one of those major digital tools that I use in a different part are text files and my text editors. Now I'm using like BB Edit on my Mac to do text editing, but I could use 50 other text editors and it wouldn't be any different. I sometimes use Obsidian because I already have my notes in Obsidian, and I just add more stuff to the bottom of my notes, right? So you can use anything. I don't feel like, oh, if I stopped using Obsidian, I'm totally hosed. No, I can just find some other text editor to use. The same way when it comes to like using the virtual tabletop component. I use Owlbear Rodeo 2.0, but I actually have a version of Owlbear Rodeo 1.0 that I could run off of my little Raspberry Pi over there. I could switch to that. Foundry has a very basic version of Foundry. I forget what they call it, but there's like a default installation of Foundry that's really just like tokens and maps, right? And it's a little harder to drop a token on there because you still have to create an actor for each token. It expects you have stat blocks and stuff like that, but I don't think it's too hard. And then you just don't have to worry about having the monsters. You could literally, and I do this for every online game I run, I have the physical book of monsters in front of me. But really what I'm talking about here, and the main thing I want you to take away from this whole thing is the power of using text files to help us run our games online. Very, very powerful tool, super lightweight, been around forever, super ubiquitous, transfers between machines, is as flexible as the humble index card. Many GMs have talked about the value that index cards play in there. They can use it for so many different things. I think I have an article about like 10 uses for index cards. And the truth is that, off the top of my head, I have 6 uses for text files for running our games. So next time you're thinking about a tool that you want to help you track your game, take a look at using text files. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, and you want more stuff like this from me, the best thing you can do is subscribe to the Sly Flourish newsletter. There is a link down in the show notes. It is absolutely free to sign up. You get a free adventure generator with a mini RPG in it for signing up, and you get a weekly RPG-related email that has links to all of the other stuff that I do. You can also support me directly on Patreon. Patrons get access to things like the 5e artisanal database. They get access to a whole bunch of different scenarios, adventures, tips, tricks, other tools, the Patreon Q&A database, the talk show database, lots of different ways to get access to all of the stuff that I've put out there. Patrons get access to a ton of different stuff. It's very reasonably priced. And you can pick up any of my books, including The Lazy DM's Companion, which we're just taking a look at, City of Archers, which is now available worldwide, Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, my book to help GMs run their games, and more at the Sly Flourish bookstore. Links for all of those in the show notes. Thank you so much. Have a great day, and get out there and play an RPG.